All right. Hey, hey. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Let's let the room populate here and we'll get going. As always, once you enter the room, please give StreamYard your credentials. It'll guide you right through it. And then if you're accessing it through the Tour of Idaho Facebook page, or if you're accessing it through YouTube on the Motorcycle Jazz page, it'll tell me who you are, and it makes it easier for me to answer your questions. Good evening, Connor. First guy in. All right, now I see it starting to rack up. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I have a bunch of sixth graders I'm trying to herd together and get them to run down to the same end of the field at the same time. Hey, hello, Tyler. Hello, anonymous Facebook user. Give it just about 30 more seconds and then we'll rock and roll. Be thinking of some questions because I don't have a lot in terms of prepared things to go through tonight. I'm going to kind of go through the first few days of the tour. Hello, Brian. And talk a little bit about things. Hello, Brian, how they're the same and how they're different for this year. And then I'm just going to take questions for a while. We'll go through, we can talk about challenge point rules, nav, anything you want. There is a place I started on the forum specifically for navigational questions related specifically to 2023. And you can go there and ask questions. And there's an awful lot of tour vets who are in the steering group who sort of monitor that thread in the forum. And if you go in there and ask a question, you're very likely to get a very good answer from somebody that knows what they're talking about. Hello, Andrew. Good to see you, bud. Well, let's just get rolling. Let's talk about the first few days of the tour. Just kind of go through 1, 2, and 3 up to the mystery section and see where that takes us. I didn't really make, hello, Richard, a lot of changes this year that I thought about. Hello, Nick, because the route was so good last year that I thought if we just tweaked a few things, there are a few things that I did that I thought were in error after I saw how the tour went. And I wanted to fix some of that stuff, but the basic elements of the tour, hello, Scott, I thought were pretty good last year. So I just didn't want to deviate a lot from that because I want this to kind of be the legacy route that will exist after we're no longer handing out jersey numbers and monitoring people's progress anymore. So day 1, for all intents and purposes, is kind of the same as it was last year. Hello, Luke. Good to see you, man. And everybody knows what that is. So a question came up the other day, which I thought was a pretty good one, from a tour vet that said, well, I'm coming back this year. You know, I've tried the tour before, recently enough that there's going to be some pre-ride penalties, but my partner has never been here before. And specifically, this guy had ridden day 1, but his partner had not ridden any of day 1, and he wanted to know if there would be pre-ride penalties. And the answer to that is yes, but, you know, with some modification. Here's the deal. The reason that there are pre-ride penalties is because if anybody on your team knows what's going on, then there's not going to be a navigation issue. You know, I know that most of you talk to each other through headsets and things like that. And so if anybody knows the way, nobody in your team is likely to get lost. And that just makes it a lot easier. But I probably will cut you a little bit of slack. You know, if it's like, if you're on a 3-person team, one person's been there before, the other 2 haven't. Yeah, I'll relieve that burden a little bit. Same if it's a team of 2 and one of you's been here before and one of you hasn't. And if you talk to me about that, we'll work out a plan before you depart and we'll be able to do something like that. But there are still going to be pre-ride penalties because, again, if anybody on the team, you know, knows the navigation, then, you know, kind of the jig's up in some sense. So, oh man, we got all kinds of cool guys in here. Hello, Spencer. Good to see you. So day 1 is, for all intents and purposes, the same as it was last year. The sections are laid out for pre-riding, as pre-ride penalties. So you have to do a little bit more if you've pre-ridden any of it. I do think that this year, day one truly is the longest day. Last year, that was not true. It was day three that ended up being the longest day. Even really skilled riders, and that's my error. I went in there one afternoon on a lightly loaded bike, not loaded up like a tour bike, and it was way up. It was almost dead of winter, so it was really, really, really dry. And I don't want to give away too much, but there's one trail on last year's day three that did a lot of people in, and it's because during tour season there's water running down it. Once you get out of the water, I don't think it's that hard. I still don't think it's that hard, but it's really difficult where you're riding up basically this creek for a long way. And I went in with just a saw and not much else, and it was really dry, and it all been cut, and I totally underestimated what it was like. I went back last year because I said, man, there's a lot of people that are good riders are having trouble with this. Did I find the right trail or something? I found the right trail, but it's just way different when there's water running down it, as I found out. So, hello, Mike. Good to see you. So, day one, same as last year. The pre-ride penalties are the same. The challenge section's the same. And so you're gonna want to get started probably around 4 or 5 in the morning. Now, if you're pros like this one team that came in last year and put the boots to everything, you can get started as late as you want. I think those guys started at 6 and they were at my house at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But those were extremely good riders. That team of 3 from Montana, those guys were, they were pro caliber riders. Those guys can do things like that. For most mortals, you're going to want to be on the trail no later than 4 o'clock in the morning on day one. And that gives you plenty of time to rest in the middle of the day, to hydrate, to eat a meal if you want to deliberate past, riding errors, navigational errors, something breaks in your bike. Day one is way harder than most people imagine it can be. If you don't ride a lot of trail, and you tour vets, feel free to chime in. I think day one, most people ride more single track trail on day one of the Tour of Idaho than they do in an entire season. It's over 200 miles, and a lot of it's single track, and the double track is no jokes. There was a guy a couple years ago broke his leg riding some of the double track, some of the quad trail. It's bumpy, a lot of it's technical, and you got to go. You got to stay on it, and the route finding is not particularly easy. So don't take day one lightly. It is, I think, overall the most difficult day of the tour if you don't take into account fatigue, which accumulates during the tour. Jim Spooner, there you go. Most people, anonymous Facebook user, most people have never rode 200 miles in a day before on a dirt bike, and that's literally true. And a lot of that day is on trail that's this wide. If you do the challenge section, it's one of the more difficult ones. It's kind of a huckleberry. So day one is for real, and I want it to be that way because I want you to know what you're getting into. I don't think there's anything more difficult later in the tour, but there's certainly stuff that is as hard. Hello, JR, and it's way in the middle of nowhere. So I want you to be prepared. Now, there are some challenge sections deeper into the tour, especially this year, that are genuine huckleberries. So the challenge section on day one is kind of hard, and I ride it all the time, so I'm not a good person to judge because, if you're familiar with something, that makes it a lot easier. But the challenge section on day one is kind of hard. It would be one of the more difficult ones, but there are some challenge sections deeper in the tour. Holy moly, have you got your work cut out for you? I think I know who that guy is. Maybe not even a 100-team Buckeye. All right. So enough about day one. It is what it is. It's all laid out. I think the navigation's there. I haven't found any wayward waypoints or anything. If anybody has any questions about day one, I'd be delighted to ask them right now. But it's basically the same day one that we've used for several years. There's a route for soloists. There's a route for teams of 2, and there's a route for teams of 3. Again, there are some bonus sections / pre-ride penalty sections, and there's a challenge section. The challenge section is kind of a huckleberry. I wouldn't recommend it because it's in the middle of an already long day. You should, if you start out 4 in the morning, you should easily be in Pocatello by 7 or 8 at night, and that was kind of average last year. Most people last year got a good early start. Most people were in 7, 8 at the flagpole, and that was just fine. Now, the thing that's different is that in the past, you got either a day or a half a day off after that. And it's not happening this year. For years and years, what I tried to do was to make it fair, and I didn't want to have a home field advantage. So I get to sleep in my own bed at the end of day one whenever I did it. And so I said, well, I got a shop. I can do anything I want to do. I always carried all my stuff, but, I could roll into my own shop and fix something pretty easily. So I always gave people either a day or a half day off in Pocatello, so that if you were coming from somewhere halfway around the world, you kind of had the same advantages I did. You could take that day off, you could make adjustments to your bike and stuff like that. And all I ever heard was, that's for sucks. Half days off are for sucks. Okay, well, you don't get it anymore. But what I did do is I did make day 2 this year kind of light. So it's not a full day like a lot of days on the tour. Now, day 2, there's a special nav challenge in it, but there's no mystery section really in day 2. What we're going to do in day 2 this year is do what we did on day 2 last year. So we're going to take you around outside of Pocatello and just take you in some of our favorite local trails, sort of around the valley a little bit. You're going to go south of Pocatello, make a loop back up. You're going to come out on top of Kinport Peak. You're going to pop down. Then you're going to do what we did on day 3 last year. You're just going to ride the slab down to American Falls and start from there. So I see a question here. Tyler, if I wanted a 12:01 start on D1, is the official start from the TOI sign from when I leave the hotel or when I hit the trail? It's the TOI sign. Everything else is just getting you there. So 12:01 at the TOI sign is just fine. We recommend that you take our way of getting there, but a lot of locals, you can access that sign from different directions. You can get there from Black Canyon. You can get there from the south. A lot of the guys in northern Utah that have done it have just spent the night at their own home and ridden up from the south. So the official start is the T1 sign at the Idaho-Utah border. And you can start at 12 midnight if you want to. You don't even have to wait. You could start at 12:0001, I guess is what I'm saying. So I hope that answers your question, Tyler. If you're at that sign, if you want to give yourself all the time in the world, just be at the sign around midnight and you're good to go. So on day 2 this year, again, you're going to do what we did the morning of day 2 or the afternoon of day 2 last year. You're going to take that little lap around Pocatello. Then you're going to hit the slab and go to American Falls. And you should be in American Falls easily, and I mean easily, 4 hours after you start. It shouldn't be any trouble at all. So what that suggests to me is if you want to sleep in a little bit in day 2, if you want to go to Power Sports and have some work done, as long as you get out of Power Sports or get out of Pocatello by, 11 or 12 o'clock, I think you'll be okay to get to Arco before the sun goes down. So I would not be worried about getting out of Pocatello at the crack of dawn anymore. You can sleep in a little bit on day 2. You can take care of a little business here in town. Now, there's no more auxiliary points. I made all those go away just because once we started making the days off go away, you're on a tighter schedule, so you don't have to worry about auxiliary points anymore. But a work accommodations in Pocatello. A friend of mine runs he opened up sort of a business downtown called the Purpose Center. And he has rooms that he rents out in the Purpose Center, and you can stay there overnight. It's not quite a hotel. It's a little bit more like a bed and breakfast kind of a deal. But he has these wonderful rooms, and the Purpose Center is where you want to stay. Now, I made this announcement before. It's like an Airbnb, I guess would be the better way to call it. But you can go to the Purpose Center's website, Purpose Center Pocatello, and you can look him up. You can talk to him. The guy's name is Craig Yaden. He's a good friend of mine. He opened up this business. It's fabulous. They're the nicest rooms in town. This place is just wonderful. But somebody called him a while back and said, well, I think Martin said this would be a good place to stay, and I'd like to stay there, but can I put my motorcycle in my room? And no one ever answered yes to that question anywhere. I'm aware that some of you guys want to do that. And you might get away with it in Arco or someplace like that, or in Chalice, but this is a nice place. I'll also tell you this. Idaho is not California. Your motorcycle's not going to get stolen while it's parked outside of your hotel room. I don't ever lock up anything around here. Now, I'd hate to be the guy that says this, you believe me, and then you get ripped off. But I've been doing this for a long time, nearly 20 years, and nobody has ever been ripped off on the Tour of Idaho, at least not that I'm aware of. Your bikes are safe around here. You could leave your bike on the street. If it worries you a lot, I've got chain locks and stuff, and you can lock it up the night you're in Pocatello. Just leave the chain lock at the flagpole the next morning, and that'll be fine if that makes you feel better. But I think you're going to be just fine. A lot of you have key starts on your bikes anyway. The kind of people around here that would try to steal your bike, kick starting it or something like that would defeat them. Without a key in it, they're never going to be able to figure out how to do it anyway. So if you want to stay at the Purpose Center or any place, I would not make the fact that they are going to frown upon you dragging your motorcycle into your room any kind of a factor that I would consider in selecting a room. Nobody's going to tell you that you can do that. Now, having said all that, every time I go to California, I stay in the cheapest motels I can find when I'm riding into Mojave and stuff, because I absolutely drag my bike into the room. I had my GPS unit stolen off my motorcycle down there a few years ago. When I went into an In-N-Out to get a hamburger, I walked back out and everything on my handlebars was stripped off the bike. So, and I'm pretty sure the only reason the bike was still there was because it was an XR 650R and they couldn't figure out how to start it. So, I get it. And I get the fact that a lot of you live in places where that is a little bit of an issue. But in Idaho, it's not an issue. And if it is, somebody said padlock on rear sprocket. It's just not a problem here. So anyway, onward. So you're going to be in, any reasonable rider is going to be in Arco 4 hours after you leave Pocatello on that second day. So you're going to be just fine getting there. If you decide you want to get up, at 7 or 8 in the morning and get a good start, you ought to be there by 10. It'll be easy peasy lemon squeezy. We haven't changed anything in the desert out through the sand bowl. You still ride through the little notch in the cliff. We shorten the area that you ride through the sand just because some of that's private land and what wasn't BLM land. But I was starting to get really worried about people starting fires, riding through the sagebrush and stuff. So we just, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy all the way up to the special nav section. And I'm going to do the special nav section the same way I've done it the last few years. This is a very, very popular feature of the tour. People amazingly like this a lot. And I think that speaks well of the kind of people that are interested in the Tour of Idaho. Because a lot of people view this as like, this is the age of GPS. Why are you making us read a map? Well, it's because it's kind of cool to be able to read a map. So when you get there, I will, hello, Damon, and hello, Ralph. So when you get to American Falls, in the email that you provide me, I will email you your particular route through the desert. And I'm going to do it the same way I've always done it. The most I'm going to penalize you is a point. If you have to mess up your route pretty badly to get penalized a point. So there's a bazillion ways. All you got to do is keep going towards the butte. So if you get lost out there, you can see Big Southern Butte the whole way. Just keep taking roads that take you towards the butte and you'll eventually get there. Now, there's no direct way to get there, which is the interesting thing about it. So you'll be on a big straight road that you think this has got to be it. This road is 80 feet wide and it's perfectly smooth gravel. I can do 100. It's must, and it's pointed straight at the butte. It's got to go there. Doesn't work that way out there. Those roads go all over the place. It's very weird the way the roads are laid out there in the desert. But by hit and miss, you can eventually figure out a way to get there. If you're carrying maps, which we encourage you to do, once you get hopelessly lost, just pull out your map and you should be able to figure out a way to navigate through the desert. These days, everybody makes their own. I mean, you can go get the BLM maps and stuff if you want, but you can make your own maps with all this wonderful software that's out there these days to help you with your motorcycle adventure. So just download some reasonable maps or, go get the BLM maps for the desert and you should be fine. Hell, even the DeLorme series will work out there in the Arco Desert. So let's see. Beat the heat. If it's a time during your attempt, if it's hot, it can be pretty brutal. I definitely wouldn't want to be getting out of American Falls at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. You want to make sure you're there before that. Pretty sure that success in the Desert Mystery Route has a high correlation to success going deeper in the tour. Truer words were never spoken. The people that get out there and they get through it, and then later on they're going, yeah, man, that was awesome. Those are people that I know are going to be just fine because not only do they have the ability to actually navigate, which is what we ask you to do, but they get the whole sense of adventure, the sense of playfulness, and that's kind of cool. It's I think this is one of the better things that we put in. And to be truthful, we kind of put it in as a filter. But people really liked it. I haven't heard anybody complain about it yet. And most people said, yeah, this was kind of a value-added thing to the tour. So you do that special nav section. That takes you to the top of the butte. And then you've got waypoints again to get you into Arco. And I would say that unless you are very, very slow, get out of Pocatello around 10 in the morning, you should be in Arco by about 7 o'clock at night. And that's about all there is to it. Now, that starts you on day 3. Hey, James Harvey, how you doing, buddy? So, day 3 is interesting because day 3 last year you had to ride after you rode all the way to Arco, and I shortened it up, but I also made it a little bit more interesting. So there's more to the mystery section on day 3 than there was last year. The guys in the steering group kind of know what it is, but I'm not telling anybody else yet. You'll get your directions when you get to Arco. You will get a set of directions. Hello, Jake. There's a place called Lost River Honda in Arco. Do what you would do anywhere else. Call ahead. Tell them what you want. And they're pretty good guys. They probably won't have what you want if you don't order it in advance. But if you call them in advance, they're pretty good about getting guys in and out pretty quick. And you'll have a little bit of time that morning because, again, day 3 is not as long as it was last year. You're going to Ledor, which is where we went last year, but you're not going to be getting there at 2, 3, or 4 in the morning if you're a strong rider. You're going to be getting there before dark. So, Lost River Honda, very good place to do business with. I've done business with those guys for years, and they're nice people, and they will take care of you. Just call in advance. That's the best thing to do because it's a small town place. They do a lot more business in ATVs and side-by-sides. They do motorcycles, so they're not likely to have motorcycle parts unless you order in advance. Tell them what you want, and they'll hook you up. So on day 3, you're going to ride up the Arco Pass. You're going to ride north. You're going to go up to Pass Creek Road, and that's where the mystery section starts. And all I'm going to tell you is that it's different than it was last year. You do end up in Ledor that night. You're taking a different route to get to Ledor, and you're really going to dig the heck out of it. There's a challenge section, and man, is this challenge section a doozy. If you decide to do it, my hat's off to you. If you do this challenge section, you're able to pull it off. That is the one circumstance in which you might end up getting into Ledor at 4 in the morning again. And don't do it if it's rainy. You'll hate the world. But I tell you what, even a guy that's old like me and kind of beat up, I love riding that stuff. It's hard for me, but I love it. It's just really, really fun trail. And even though it's beating you up pretty good, or at least it beats me up pretty good, I like it because it's in such a beautiful spot. And, you're riding along, and sometimes there's like some significant side hill there, and sometimes you're riding over wet rocks that are the size of Volkswagen Beetles, but it's beautiful. And if you're going to beat yourself to death, I've always thought you might as well choose pleasant surroundings. And that's what this is. It's a beautiful spot with some brutal riding and just a couple of spots. It's never really long. There's like a couple of spots that are maybe a mile long that are separated by a little bit where the riding's kind of hard. But other than that, it's mostly okay. You're going to love it. Everybody that's done this says this, to me, was the Tour of Idaho, and I'm really happy to hear that because I feel the same way. It's very representative of what the whole thing's about. So you're going to go to Ledor. There's only one place to stay in Ledor. They're really good about hooking you up. They have door codes that they give you when you book your room, so even if you get in late, you should have a door code and you should be able to get in. Pretty nice little general store there. Not a lot else, though. There's no motorcycle shop, and there's just not a lot in terms of services. Ledor is a road hard, put up wet kind of a place. There are Airbnbs in the area. If you want to stay in an Airbnb, that's fine, but it's a little inconvenient. Most of the Airbnbs are not particularly right along your route. You might have to ride a little ways to get to them. So that gets you into Ledor, the end of day 3. Now, day 4 is also different than it was last year a little bit. And day 4 is kind of a long day. Doesn't have to be. One of the reasons that day 4 was so long last year was because I screwed up and I made day 3 too long. And people were getting in way late at night. Strong teams were getting in at 2 and 3 in the morning. And, that makes it really hard to get up at 6 o'clock the next morning and get going and feel very good. So it's about the same length as it was last year, follows a slightly different route. But I would say you'll get into Mackey this year. You'll be feeling better about it just because we've made day 3 a lot less difficult. It's a lot shorter. You'll get in earlier at night. So it's not this killer day like it was last year. So far we got day 1. Long day. Day 2. Not such a long day, and definitely not anything that's very difficult on day 2. Day 2, except for the special nav section, easy riding the whole way. You don't really have to worry about hauling ass anywhere. The desert sand gives some people some trouble, but not you guys. All of you are good enough riders that desert section isn't going to slow you down the least bit. Getting to day 3, we made it a lot shorter than last year, so it is you should have no trouble. So day 1 so far is definitely the longest, hardest day. Day 2, day 3, both fairly a lot shorter than before. And there's some difficult trail there, but you have plenty of time to deal with it. But you get to day 4. Day 4 is substantially the same as it was last year. So that's kind of a longest day since day 1. But again, you will have the advantage of having not been beat so thoroughly to death the day before and having been on the bike for so long. Instead of being on the bike for like 15, 18 hours, you should be on the bike about 10 on day 3. And that makes the 10 to 12 on day 4 a lot easier to tolerate. Now, once you get to Mackey, which is at the end of day 4, you're back on trails again that aren't mystery trails. The GPS waypoints are there. Oh, and by the way, somebody sent me a DM a little earlier today, said there looked like there were some old waypoints in some of these files. I tried to clean them up as much as I could. If you spot points that don't look like they're there, they have the wrong day or something on them, let me know. She's already written to me about that stuff. And the best way to do it might just be to post it up in that navigation thread in the forum. I'll try to go in and clean all that stuff up. So far, it's only been 1 or 2 days that people have said that they've spotted what they thought were errant points. I thought I cleaned all that stuff up. I spent a lot of time trying to do it, but I obviously missed some of it. So now you got to go to Mackey, the Smoky Bar store. And the interesting thing about that is there's another wonderful opportunity to get motorcycle parts, tires, things like that, down in Haley. So there's a place, Karl Malone Power Sports in Haley. I've heard mixed things about them. Some people said they were great to work with. Other people said, oh, man, it took them hours to get us out. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but most of what I heard about those folks was pretty good. When I talked to them on the phone, they were very, very eager for your business. Again, I would recommend that you call in advance and tell them what you want. And by that, I mean call in advance before the tour starts. Tell them what you want. Say, yeah, I'm going to be coming in on this day. I need this tire. I need this oil, whatever it is that you want. If you just show up there, A, they won't be expecting you, so you probably can't expect to get in and out real fast. You need to sort of make an appointment. And B, they're not likely to have some of these really exotic parts because, again, most of their business is ATVs and side-by-sides. Motorcycle stuff just isn't what floats the boat at a lot of power sports dealerships anymore. Now, this brings up kind of an interesting question or something that comes up all the time. What if I don't make it all the way there? That's a you problem. A lot of these businesses are going to want you to pay for stuff in advance that they order up, and I agree with that. You can always, jump in your car. If you decide to abandon the tour, go up there and pick up your parts and use them later if you want to. You can, what a lot of people do, and something I approve of, is just once you can't do a T1 anymore, you decide you don't want to, do a T2. Ride the route, ride it at your own pace, do it by your own standards, and enjoy the heck out of yourself. But a lot of these folks are going to want you to pay in advance for the parts that you have them special order for you, and that's something that I've told them in the past, don't feel bad about that. You should. Because if not, about 9/10 of this stuff you're going to end up owning because the people won't make it that far. Now, again, day 4 is a short enough day that you should be able to catch them easily by around noon. Take the drive south on the slab to go down to Haley to go to Karl Malone Power Sports. Get yourself hooked up Go back up north to Ketchum, turn left, and ride some of the greatest trail in the world to get yourself to Smoky Bar Store, where Kaylin and her posse will be there to take care of you. It is, again, it's a wonderful experience. All of those trails around Ketchum and Sun Valley are wonderful trails. The local community up there and multi-user community does a great job of sawing that stuff, maintaining it. You know, they're banked, and mountain bikers like bank trails and stuff. So when you're riding these trails, you can rail most of these things. A few of them are technically difficult, but most of them are not. They're fun, awesome trails that you can ride in third, fourth gear if you want to. They're just wonderful. Brilliant views, a lot of geology if you're into that, and geomorphology, a lot of interesting stuff to look at on the side of the trail. And you should get in to see Kaylin around 5 o'clock, even if you go to Haley to get your motorcycle worked on. That was really common. Kaylin will take really good care of you. Smoky Bar Store, again, is just one of the quintessential stops along the tour of Idaho. Just make sure you're cool to Kaylin. Now, yeah, again, I hate talking about stuff like this, but not everybody is cool to Kaylin. She lives by herself with her little girl way out in the middle of the boondocks. And there have been some people that have come through on the tour of Idaho, I regret to say, that did some things that really kind of made the rest of us look bad. You cannot use drugs and do things like that in front of her daughter. That happened. I understand that different people are wired different ways, and they just don't have the sensitivity to something like that. So all I would ask you to think of is this. You are a single woman raising a little girl, working in a store in the middle of nowhere. How would you feel if your 6-year-old daughter was watching somebody fire up a bowl in front of her? I think most of you would find that objectionable behavior. And you're hearing this from a guy that doesn't give a shit about drugs. I don't care one way or the other. I think it's your life. You do what the hell you want. I'm not having anything to do with it, but you do what you want. I have the libertarian view. But if you did that in front of my kids, we'd have a problem that you probably couldn't handle. So just be sensitive. And I don't even dislike the guys that did it. I think they're pretty nice guys, but they just made a huge faux pas in doing that. Hey, by the way, try to be sensitive all along the way to things like that. You are coming into these people's places of business in the middle of nowhere. Be a little bit sensitive, you've been riding all day. You've been getting the crap beat out of you all day. But these people are serving customers all day. They're tired too. So when you come rolling in, it's not, don't expect like a hero's welcome everywhere. You are another customer to them. They're very happy to have your business. Most people along the way will bend over backward to accommodate you. They know who you are. They know what you're doing because they look at the calendar. They're aware of who's coming through. There's some people like have your name up on the chalkboard, welcome team so-and-so. It's awesome, the trouble they go to. But we have people that they show up way late, like 2 or 3 in the morning. If you don't have a door code or you didn't make arrangements in advance, to just have the key in your room or something like that, don't go around beating on windows and stuff to wake people up. That's a you problem. It's not their problem. It's a you problem. And I've had people tell me before, well, they didn't act like they were upset to me. And I go, well, of course they didn't, because they need your business. But would you want to be rousted out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning by people on motorcycles that showed up that late? No one wants that. So, have a little compassion for these folks that you're dealing with and recognize that all it takes is a phone call to clear that up. You think you're going to be in really late? Hell, if nothing else, send me a message through your PLB and I'll call them. But there's ways to make that stuff work, but you can't just show up in the middle of the night and rouse people out of bed. I remember a bunch of years ago, there was a guy that posted all over the internet, places I can't control, on Adventure Rider and stuff. Oh, yeah, I woke this lady up at 4 in the morning, and she was more than happy to sell me 5 gallons of gas. I guarantee you she was not more than happy. She did it because she's barely eking out a living in the middle of nowhere, but no one wants to be woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning to deal with you. So just have a little compassion about that. So you get to see Kaylin, and you're going to get up early the next morning. I tell you what, even in the middle of summer, it can be darn cold at Smoky Bar Store when you get up at 5 or 6. So when you're riding up Paradise Creek, be prepared to ride over some ice at times because it can be colder than a well digger's fanny. You're going to ride up Paradise, get up to the top. It's a little bit steep at the top, but it's not anything that any of you all can't handle. It is a little bit exciting first thing in the morning. Like the first 6 miles are fast and fine, but you get right up there at the top, and there's a couple of times I've had to take 2 runs at that last hill at the top. There's a couple of switchbacks up there, too, that are a little bit high energy. Then you come down off the other side. You come up Buell Creek down into, what is it? I think we come down into Chemechkin. You pop out there on the highway just south of, what the hell's the name of that little place? There's just a little general store there. That general store is open by the time you get there. They have gas there. So there is a place there. There's no gas pumps at Smoky Bar store. Usually, Kaylin can sell you a used gas can that has a little bit of gas in it, but of course, she's not a dealer for gasoline. Smiley Creek, thank you, JR. Smiley Creek's got gas pumps, and you could easily make it all the way from Ketchum to Smiley Creek on a tank of gas. That's not a problem. But Kaylin can usually hook you up. So you can stop at Smiley Creek, get a little bit more to eat. Then you're going to head down towards Germania. We use the Grand Prize Gulch Trail instead of Germania, but this year there's something that's a little special you're going to have to bear in mind. This is something that happens all over the West. It pisses everybody off, but there's just not anything that you can do about it that's going to make life better for anybody. You're not going to ameliorate this situation by being angry. There's a landowner there that is refusing to recognize an easement. And he owns a little strip of land. It's like, I don't know, quarter mile, half a mile. There was an easement through his property along which the road went, and he's decided he doesn't want to recognize that easement. Now, he's dead wrong, and he's eventually going to lose. But for the time being, he's got all that stuff gated off. And so what you are going to have to do this year, now, if you get there and things change, the gate's not locked or anything, then go ahead and ride through his land. But the last I heard, which was at the end of last season, it's in all the newspapers and stuff, too. This guy's in a huge fight with the Forest Service. He's got helicopters buzzing, people that are trying to ride that road and buzzing Forest Service personnel. They're trying to build a little trail around his easement. But that's the situation right now. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go from the guard station up what's called the Bowery Trail, which was a bonus trail that we've used the last few years. And so you're going to take Bowery up over into Germania Creek, and I talked about that a lot in the route description. Now, that's kind of a steep trail. I don't think it's necessarily that technical, but it's really steep. I mean, it'll heat your clutch and your radiator up for sure. It goes up these big, long switchbacks up this hill, and it's a steep rascal for sure, but that shouldn't give any of you any trouble, even on a loaded tour bike. Come down the other side, you go through some woods and stuff. You pop out into a creek. You got to cross the creek a few times, which I think is the main exercise there. And you're going to come out the north end of the Germania Trail, the northeast end of the Germania Trail. And so you're going to do all this riding to go past maybe, I don't know, a mile of road because this nozzle won't recognize a quarter of a mile of an easement, but it is what it is, so you just got to do it. So that'll slow you down a little bit. That riding up over Bowery and out Germania is much longer. It probably takes about an hour longer than if you could just ride up the road. So be prepared for that. Nonetheless, you should still have no trouble getting to Sawmill Station. Noonish, 1 o'clock, you should be there. Again, Ross is a wonderful guy at Sawmill Station. He loves you guys. They make awesome sandwiches there. One of the guys that works for him hates the tour of Idaho, though. He's a motorcycle guy. He's this dude from California. He talks trash about the tour all the time. He'll talk trash to you while you're sitting there if he's working after he fixed your burger. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but those of you who know me know who it is. And so you can troll him all you want to. But Ross, the owner, super, super, super good dude. You're going to like it a lot. They have wonderful sandwiches there, so please make sure that you plan on eating yourself a good lunch at Sawmill Station. Super good dudes. You're patronizing a good business, and you'll like it there. But you got a long way to go to get in the Chalice. And this typically fools people on this day because they think, well, looking on the map, it doesn't look like it's that far to Chalice, but the way you got to go, it's a long way to get to Chalice. So if you're rolling out of Sawmill Station at 4 in the afternoon, there's no way on this earth that you're getting there before dark. It's just not going to happen. Now, there's some bonus section on that day, and what I always tell people is, look, if you get there to some of these optional bonus sections early enough, by all means do them. Same with the CS. If you get there early enough and you want to do it, do it. That Custer CS is cool. Now, we fixed it so that you can't just leave your bags at the base and do the loop anymore. You got to ride it in and out a different way. You got to ride down Ramey Creek now, which is a huckleberry all by itself. But it's a great challenge section, but get there, set yourself a good cutoff time. And what I tell people is if you get there by 2 in the afternoon, you're probably good for the challenge section. That out and back, that's a bonus. If you get there by, I'd say, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you're probably okay. But if you get there late, don't do any of that stuff. Go past it because it is a long way into Chalice. And you don't want to come rolling into Chalice late because, wood doesn't work there anymore. Well, that's disappointing. I used to like going in there because I knew it made the guy spit in the ground just because I walked into the place. Well, anyway, get into Chalice. Plan on getting into Chalice early because your next day, your day 7, has got a mystery section in it, and it's long. People took a long time to get into Chalice last year, and I would say that day 7 is the equivalent to day 1 and day 4 in terms of the amount of time it's going to take and the overall level of difficulty of that day. And a lot of it's mystery. Now, I haven't changed it very much. I wanted to add a few more trails to it this year, but I just didn't have the time last fall to get up and ride them, and I don't put them on unless I ride them all myself. So it's substantially the same as it was last year, and again, half of the day is mystery section. There are a ton of bonus routes on that day. Again, my advice to you is set a cutoff time. Some of those bonus sections on day 7 are really good to do if you're not behind schedule. So you want to ride up to Sheephorn Lookout. It's wonderful. It's an incredible view up there. You look all the way back up where you just came from when you were riding up Hat Creek Lakes. You can see all the way back up at Hat Creek Lakes in that saddle. It's a great view. It's dead easy riding. It's pretty fast, but it is an out and back, and it doesn't advance you an inch. So, I'd say, hey, if I'm here by 10 or 11 o'clock, I'll do it. If I'm any later than that, I'll pass it by, and I'll get a bonus somewhere later in the tour. Lots of bonus section on that day. Lots of places you can go. There's a real short one up to Iron Lake and back. All kinds of ways for you to be able to earn yourself some stuff. Scott Berry, day 7 is long. Second longest day for me. Add weather, and it's a huckleberry. There's no doubt about that. If it's raining on you, you're really going to hate it in day 7 because it could be a slick rascal. Challenge section on day 7 is worth doing. You're going to have to ride it anyway. It's a challenge section if you ride it one way. It's just part of the regular trail if you ride it the other. I might plan on doing that one because I think riding up it is kind of hard because it's a rocky son of a gun. You ride about 6 miles up all these rocks, bowling ball size rocks. A lot of them move when you hit them. But I think most of you can handle that. And if you do it, if you ride it as a challenge section, it shortens your day quite a bit. Now, you don't have to do that. You can ride down it if you want, but it'll make your day a lot longer day if you do that. But that's one I would think about doing. So then you're going to get into salmon. Probably you won't get to salmon before 7 o'clock at night. That would be my bet. 7 or 8 is when you can plan on rolling in. By the way, everything in salmon closes at 9 o'clock. You're not getting a meal. There's not even a vending machine candy bar that you're going to get after 9 o'clock at night. All the service stations are closed. The pumps are open, but unless you can live off gasoline, you're not getting anything to eat. So make sure you do your utmost to get into salmon by 8 o'clock at night because at 9 o'clock you're out of business. You might be able to go to Al Bar and get some crackers or something, but that's going to be about the end of it. So the next day, day 8, last year we just abandoned it because there were so many fires burning in the area. This year, I don't know what the trail's going to look like up there. When we get a little closer to the tour season, I have a lot of friends that live in the area, and I'll get some intel on them. As long as those trails are sawed, we're going to use them. But if we get up there and we've got to not use those trails this year, if we got to leave the single track out, we'll have to see how that goes. But I don't have too much heartburn about that. You can take a half a day off in Salmon, then take a casual route to North Fork and get ready for your next big day, which will be day 9. So there are 2 or 3 single track trails that I've got planned for you, and they're great trails if they're open. But given the amount of fire that burned up there last year, I kind of have my doubt about whether or not any of that stuff is going to get sawed out this year in time for us to do it, because we're not talking about just the normal blowdown. We're talking about thousands of trees that are probably down in some of those trails. Hopefully fire season this year will be better than average, and everyone won't have to really seek out bonus points to cover for closures later in the tour. So far it's looking pretty good. The long-term forecasts are continued precipitation, and the only thing that's bad would be if the precipitation stopped right now, because we'd have a huge amount of fuel, which would dry out. Then the fire season would be catastrophic. All of Idaho is likely to burn. But if the long-term forecast persists that I'm seeing right now, we might not have any closures this year. It looks to be a good year. In fact, bring your snow shovel. I think we're going to call Team Spooner this year Team Shovels a lot, because I think that's what you're going to be doing. There's snow in my yard still. There's snow on top of Chinese Peak right up above me that you come over when you come down into my house. You can't ride any of these trails around here. Everything is buried, and I mean way buried. So I live at about 5150. And there's still snow in my yard. And if you go up to 8,000 feet, there's like lots of snow, like waist and knee deep all over the place. So it's going to be a while this year. So that gets us into North Fork. You're going to be spending 2 nights at North Fork. Smoky Bar Store still has 2 feet of snow. Is that Kalen that posted that? Or Jensen? One of those. Who is that? It's got to be one of those people up in that area. But I'm telling you what, man, I've been telling people for years that when we first started doing the tour, we would be shoveling snow in August in a couple of spots. Up there north of Lowell. Hey, Kalen, how you doing? So up there north of Lowell was notorious for that. You get into some of that stuff in the Clearwater area, and there was snow all over the place, even in the middle of August. Then for years and years, that went away, and people were telling me, oh, no, man, there's never any snow in those places. Well, now we're getting back to sort of real Idaho winters these days. By the way, the drought's gone over most of the state now. The snow that we've got has cleaned up a lot of the drought in significant portions of the state. So it looks like a good year. I think that you're going to have a great trail to ride this year. It won't be dry and dusty. There shouldn't be fires everywhere. Ought to be really nice, but there will be snow that you'll have to deal with. You might not get through some of these 10,000-foot passes until the middle of July at the very earliest. I can tell you the first place that you're going to run into trouble is you might not get over Oxford Peak until, hey, Sean, you might not get over Oxford Peak until after July 4th. So there's a lot of snow around here still. And when you get up to, you start getting up into the middle of the state, anytime the tour goes over 9,000 feet this year, there's going to be a significant chance that you're going to have a real difficult time getting over that pass. And that's like a dozen times just in the first few days. So that gets you into North Fork, and I guess we'll stop there tonight. Next week, I'll talk about North Fork on. But if you have any questions, now's a good time to ask. I'll be delighted to answer any questions that anybody has. Somebody just made a comment, creek's running hard too. Oh, by all means. The most scared I've ever been on the tour of Idaho when I thought I was going to drown in a creek. I fell off a side hill way down into a creek, rolled about 40 feet down off a side hill into a creek, and it was in early July one year, and that creek was just roaring. And I was pinned under my bike, and I couldn't get out from under it. And the water was flowing so hard that I couldn't push the bike off of me. I actually had to crawl upstream under the bike to get out from underneath it. And I actually thought I was going to drown. I thought I was a goner. That's the most scared I've ever been riding a motorcycle, probably. And there are places along the tour where this year I think you need to be really careful crossing that creek. Jeff Jensen, sorry, no permissions. The Bowery bonus section, how's it riding it backwards? Is it worth it to get back to East Fork Road sooner? Well, you can't do that. You just got to ride up over Bowery and ride out Germania. Let me see. Creeks this year. Where are you going to have trouble? On day one, by that time, you should be okay. Day two, you should be okay. Day three, you may not be okay. There's a creek on day three that you're going to spend a lot of time in that early in the season may give you some trouble. Day four, depends on exactly the route you do. Day five, when you come out of Ketchum, after you cross, what is it? Is it Red Warrior Trail? I think that's the trail that we take once we get off the road there. Once you get crossing that creek, even in good years, can be a little bit problematic. You got to get off your bike and find the best place to cross. And it's not the first place that you might think. Like all the motorcycle tracks go to a place on the bank and stop. That's not it. You need to walk up and down the creek a little bit, and you'll finally see on the other side of the creek where everybody's ridden out of it. That's where you want to go. But I've nearly lost my bike in that creek before. If you ride any of the challenge section trail down Big Peak Creek or Big Smoky Creek, those creek crossings are going to be deep early in the season. Drowning your bike really sucks. You're going to be there for a long time, and you're going to have milkshake in your clutch probably. Yeah, Warren Springs Creek will be full. Germania crossings will be bad early. That's exactly right. Tyler, I know we can't add waypoints, but can we at least add them for our hotels, gas stations, shops, etc.? I guess you can. I wouldn't stop you for doing something like that, but you won't. You're going into towns, dude, that have a population of 50 people. You're not going to miss anything. The Lost River Hotel in Arco is way easy to find. Smoky Bar store, you can't get lost at Smoky Bar. There's only one thing there, really. Let's see. That one is a dinger. I'm sure he's talking about one of those creek crossings. Warfield, yeah. Brett asked for thanks. It's Warfield, not Red Warrior. Thank you, Brett. It's Warfield. So that's all I have tonight in terms of going through things. We'll do these for several weeks now. This football thing tonight was a little unusual. I normally don't have practice on Monday night, so I should be here right at 7 o'clock, and I apologize for being a few minutes late tonight. Okay, JR, 6DB1, 6DB3 is the first bonus of day 6. Jumps over the ridge. That's not a bonus anymore. That is a mandatory trail. That's what I talked about earlier. It is not a bonus this year. It doesn't count as a bonus. You have to do it. You have to ride the Bowery Trail. And the only way I can explain it to you is you can't ride up the road anymore, so you got to turn left, go up over Bowery, down into Germania, ride out Germania Creek. All right, yeah, read the route description. So I explained it all in the route description that I printed up. All right, anything else? I can hang out for a few more minutes before I got to go rehearse. Brett Asper, thanks for coming down to Purpose. That was awfully nice to see you and your wife down there. Thank you. Brett will tell you all about Purpose Tea. He was there a couple weeks ago. It's a good place. Okay. If two of our three-man team are returning, do we have to ride Reed Canyon on day one? Probably yes. Although it depends. Why don't you guys DM me? It depends on the last time you rode any of that day one stuff. If you haven't ridden it in a year or so, I'm going to let you skate on that. It's just if you've ridden it really recently, like if you've ridden it any time within, a year or so before you start, I'm going to insist that you do it. But if you haven't ridden it in a while, then, I'll probably let you skate on that one. We'll work something out. Excited that your season is starting to ramp up. Yeah, Sean, it's great. Tour season. It's pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited about this as the last one, to tell you the truth, but you guys are going to have fun this year. It is absolutely the best route ever. I think we've got it fine-tuned. There's a ton of expertise out there. Make sure that you take advantage of that forum, because there are some people that really know what they're talking about. And I don't spend a lot of time in the forum because I told everybody I would use the tour group on Facebook to communicate. And I promised I would stay out of things in the forum. I want you to be able to go to the forum and get information from other people that know at least as much about it as I do, who I think are pretty good hands. A lot of tour vets monitor those posts, and they will give you good information. You're hearing from guys like Brent, Spencer, Sean, just to name a few that are here tonight. Those guys all know what the hell they're talking about. They'll give you really, really good advice. Do we agree on everything? No, we do not. But we agree on 90% of stuff, and that's pretty darn good. So go out there and talk to those guys. And, always feel free to DM me if you've got anything. Like if you can't decide on whose advice is the best, DM me and I'll tell you why I think you should do it a certain way. I'm always happy to do that. Or show up on PBR Monday. I'm really happy this year overall with the level of, people doing reading and, paying attention to the directions and instructions and stuff. It's awesome that you guys do that because it just makes my life easier. I've been pretty ornery this year about, saying no to people that occurs to me are not prepared. There was one team that registered on the forum without ever having written me a letter saying this is why I wanted, followed none of the directions. Nobody was in the Facebook group. And I said, no, you're not doing a tour of Idaho. And I'm going to go through, when I go through that forum, and I go through the people that have declared, there were some people that I know that I said that were okay. Then there was a second tranche of people that I said, I know you, so it is okay. All we got to do is talk about it a little bit to make sure you're on the same page. But the third tranche, which we're working on now, are people that I don't know at all. I don't know you from Adam. I've never spoken with you. And I told everybody, look, you're going to have to write me a letter and explain to me why I should say it's okay for you to do this year, why we should all, allow you to avail yourselves of our time. And that's important that you do that. You need to send me the letter and say, I think I'm a good fit for the tour. Here's why. And you need to have a letter of reference from somebody. And there's teams that are going out there that haven't done any of that stuff, taking up dates, and I go in and I make those dates go away. So I've already done that purge once, and I'll do it again in another couple weeks. I'll go through there and look. So if a team has a date and you've never heard of them before, there's a pretty good chance that somebody just tried to poach that date. All of the people that, when your date is okay, I tell you it's okay. I will respond to you and say, you're free to go ahead and take a date. So there's no ambiguity in it. I will tell you when it's okay for you to get in there and do a date. And so far, a lot of people have done it. It's been good, but it's like always, not everybody gets the message, and that's unfortunate. But I think mostly so far, it's been really, really smooth sailing this year. Go Bills. Brett's brother is a professional football player, played for the Bills. The Little League team I've coached for a long time now is the Bills. And it's good. I'd start these kids out in kindergarten, and I'd take them all the way up to 6th grade. And my son plays this year. So last year, they got a treat. After their last game, we had a party at my house, and this dude comes walking in, who's about 6'7", weighs about 300 pounds, and looks like what he was, an NFL offensive lineman. And it's Brett Asper's brother. Okay, but these kids, he blew them away. He brought in all of his championship rings. He played on the Ducks championship team a few years ago. Brought in some NFL stuff. And these 6-year-old kids, their eyes are like this big. They can't believe it. There's a real professional football player in the room. And his brother, Mark, was the nicest guy in the world. I mean, he spent hours talking to these kids. He played catch with them. It was huge. Thank you again, Brett. You come from an awesome family, dude. Okay, Brian, day one bonus sections for returning teams. Would returning soloists meet the requirement of one bonus section by writing section C, or would you need to run A and C equaling 1 point? Let's you and I talk about that down the road. If you DM me, I'll tell you what you want. I think you, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, you were here last year, and I think you rode all of day one. So you're going to have a pre-ride penalty. And my suspicion is that you're going to have an honest-to-goodness pre-ride penalty. So you're going to have to do all the things that a soloist would do. So I think that in order for you to get a bonus out of it, you're going to have to do that one loop. And I think anything other than that would probably count as a bonus. But I'll have to go back and look at the challenge point rules. All right, anybody else before I get going here? Well, all right, everybody. Once again, you've wasted a perfectly good hour of your life that you can't get back with a knucklehead like me. But hopefully you learned a little bit of something that will help you out on the tour this year. One thing that I can't emphasize enough again is the amount of expertise there is in that forum. There are some people in that forum that know everything. They know at least as much as I do. They know everything. There are guys in that forum that can ride me into the ground, that they are motorcycle gods. They will answer your question in that forum, and they will give you good information. They'll tell they're the one thing that impresses me about tour guys is the better they are, kind of the more humble and the more understated there are. We get these guys on the tour that are A plus 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 level riders, and they would never tell you that. You got to beat it out of them. You find out when you watch how fast they ride some of this stuff. But these guys don't go around telling you how good they are. They just go ride. They're always the nicest people. They have the biggest smiles on their faces. They're just incredibly cool to deal with. They understand how big of an undertaking this is, both from the perspective of a rider, but also from the perspective of the people that get out and try to organize it and make it happen every year. They're super good to work with. There's dozens of people like that hang out in that forum. And if those guys tell you something, I'm pretty sure you can take it to the bank because they don't give out bad advice. They give out very good advice. I've been really, really meticulous about that through the years of going through and like weeding out people that I thought were just basically dipshits. We don't have any. The people that you're talking to there are all people that you can rely on. They will tell you good things. The only dipshit's me. All right. I'll see you all next Monday night, 7 o'clock. Cheers. Thanks a lot.